Many managers, especially those who were achievement-driven stars as individual performers, don't even think about relationships. They're so task-orientated that they put the work to be done and their authority as boss at the heart of what they do, and assume they can ignore the human aspects of working with others. The problem is that most people don't want your authority to be the be-all and end-all of the relationship. They want a personal human connection, an emotional link. They want you to care about them as individuals. They want you to encourage their growth and development. Research tells us that this kind of human relationship with the manager is a key factor determining an employee's level of engagement with the work. Now, some of the reasons why people may not follow your instructions are that they disagree with you, they think something else is more important, they don't understand what you want, they find circumstances have changed, they dislike being bossed around, or they're confused. I'd like to suggest to you that telling a well-structured story is one way to overcome these challenges and make a human emotional connection. There are several types of stories you might need to tell in a professional setting. These will be different from your personal life, or for example, a story you tell your kids or share with a family member. And these will also be different from the stories a novelist prepares, though the system and techniques used by novelists will be similar. In this course, we are going to use the systems and techniques novelists apply to tell their stories to how you are going to tell stories in your organization. I'm going to use my experience as a professor of leadership, as well as my experience at having written more than half a dozen novels to help you do this. Now, there are 5 archetypal organizational stories I will share with you in this course. First, we have the transformation or launch story. Now, leadership, above all, is about getting people to change. To achieve this goal, you need to communicate the complex nature of the changes required and inspire an often skeptical organization to act on it. This is where we use the transformation or launch story, one that enables listeners to visualize the large-scale change needed in their circumstances and to act on that. You'll use these stories when you need people to change what they're doing, want to tell a story about the future, want to create a catalyst for the change to happen, prepare people for what lies ahead, and build resilience and adaptability in uncertain times. Now, on this course, we are going to learn when to use a transformation or launch story, what level of detail is required for it to be impactful, how to design it, what is the story arc for this type of story, and how to build a story model canvas for this type of story. The second story that you will need to tell in an organizational setting is the personal story. You won't successfully lead people if they don't trust you. And if they are to trust you, they have to know you, who you are, where you've come from, and why you hold the views you do. Ideally, they'll end up not only understanding you, but also empathizing with you. You'll use a personal story in a first encounter. When you are nominated to a position, people are likely to be interested in learning about you. This is an obvious opportunity to satisfy that interest with a concise, well-chosen personal story. Secondly, coaching and counseling. When employees come to you for advice, sometimes direct advice can appear unhelpful, even when it is soundly based, whereas a story gives them something to think through and simulate the situation in their own mind. Thirdly, a difficult decision. When a difficult decision is about to be made or has just been made, relating a story can provide additional context to the listener. It also minimizes uncertainty and suspicion for the reason the decision was made. So on this course, we're going to learn when to use a personal story, what level of detail is required for it to be impactful, how to design it, what is the story arc for a personal story, and how to build a story model canvas for a personal story. The third story you will need is the brand or product story. Now, in some ways, the stories by which companies communicate their brand, reputation, and their products are analogous to leaders' stories of who they are. For customers and employees to trust the company and its products, they have to know what sort of company they are dealing with, what kinds of values it espouses, and how its people approach meeting customers' needs. You will use a brand story, one, when you want to differentiate your product or service offering. This might be a product feature, it might be a price, it might be service. Number two, when you need to build the reputation of your organization and communicate who you are to the people you serve and why they should deal with you. Number three, when you want to convey the values of your organization to your stakeholders. Storytelling about the company is the bread and butter of any advertising agency. In many ways, there is too much of it, and customers can become fatigued when brands don't live up to the promises they make. What I'm going to do in this course is to show you how you can add virtue into the story you tell. Now, on this course, we are going to learn when to use a brand or product story, what level of detail is required for it to be impactful, how to design it, what is the story arc for this type of story, and how to build a story model canvas for a brand or product story. The fourth story is the collaboration story. Right? Every management textbook talks about the value of getting people to work together. Now, one approach is to generate a common narrative around the group's concerns and goals, beginning with a story told by one member of the group. Ideally, that first story sparks another, which sparks another. Now, if the process continues, group members develop a shared perspective that enables a sense of community to emerge naturally. Now, this is the collaboration or knowledge sharing story. Collaboration themed stories will often be designed like a parable or a short story to transmit what you want to get across. Typical situations where you will use these stories are occasions where you faced adversity, times when two values conflicted, something that showed you what your organization is really good at, the worst thing that ever happened to you in your organization, how a client or customer was badly treated, but eventually turned out well, something that your organization is good at, but few people know about it. So on this course, we are going to learn when to use a collaboration story, what level of detail is required for it to be impactful, how to design it, what is the story arc for a collaboration story, and how to build a story model canvas for a collaboration story. Now, the fifth type of story you will need is the defining moment story. You need to choose the occasion for telling the defining moment story very carefully. Now, typically, these stories are used in a critical encounter. There's going to be times in your career when you have a critical encounter. Perhaps you're meeting someone important, someone senior, or even someone junior, or following a mini disaster at work, or even to celebrate an achievement. These are opportunities to share a defining moment story in your life that can be told through a story, which adds meaning for the reason to come together. Advising, maybe you're in a position where you're advising other employees or your family members or someone from your network. Choosing a defining moment story might give this person more to think about and simulate a response in their mind. Your story might not be a big deal for you, but it might be the most important thing they need to hear at that moment in their life. These stories are also useful when you need to curb rumors. Have you heard such and such is a whispered refrain that's often managers have to deal with. Now, denying a rumor can give it credibility. Asking how it got started may ensure it spreads. Ignoring it altogether risks allowing it to grow out of control. So rumors about issues central to the future of the organization, takeover, reorganization, managerial changes, can be an enormous distraction for all stakeholders. So on this course, we're going to learn when to use a defining moment story, what level of detail is required for it to be impactful, how to design it, what is the story arc for this type of story, and how to build a story model canvas for a defining moment story. So those are the 5 types of organizational story archetypes that you need in order to have more impact in your communications so that you enhance your influence amongst your clients, your investors, your employees, and other key stakeholders. I look forward to seeing you on the course.